Hi class, we're dealing with Hebrew poetry this week, so week 6 of our kitchen session will deal with that. 1/3 of the Old Testament is comprised of poetry, so it's imperative that we learn how to deal with it. Structure is a primary issue in Hebrew poetry, and when we're talking about structure, we have to focus in on parallelism. Lines that are grouped in units of 2 or 3. I'm not talking about verses like Psalm 23, verse 1, 2, and 3. I'm talking about the lines within the psalm. 2 lines of Old Testament poetry grouped together, sometimes 3, but at least 2, to express one thought. When you deal with your psalm this week, in our assignment, I want you to be sure and discuss briefly the kind of parallelism you see. And it will probably be various kinds within a psalm, synonymous. 2 lines that are very similar to each other, and you really can't tell the difference in them. Developmental, the second line develops the thought of the first. And illustrative parallelism, line A conveys an idea, line B illustrates it. Sometimes lines contrast, line B will contrast line A. And then there's a catch-all sort of category called formal. Lines are joined solely for metric considerations. You can look at Psalm 2:6 for an example of that. Sometimes you'll see acrostics like Psalm 119. But don't forget to deal with parallelism briefly in your assignment, and even the figurative imagery. Obviously, things like analogy, metaphor, hyperbole, that sort of thing. Hebrew poetry, like any kind of poetry, is not easy to deal with. But I think if you get a handle on parallelism particularly, and then obviously the figurative language, you'll be in good shape.